Hi, I'm Sarah Short, your host of the No Way But Through podcast. This is your weekly one-stop shop for all things mom. How to parent through those exhausting days with your little ones, how to be intentional and connected with your big kids, and how to embrace what truly matters and let go of the rest. From life with a newborn to toddlers to teenagers and everything in between, I'll teach you foundational and practical strategies on how to walk through every season of motherhood with courage and creativity, all while prioritizing your relationships with your kids in a home life where all of you can thrive. My Nana once told me, there's no way but through. Turns out she was right in life and in motherhood. So come along with me as we become better moms together. This is the No Way But Through podcast. Welcome back into the No Way But Through podcast. I am your host, Sarah Short, and I'm thrilled that you're here today listening to another episode in our new series called Short Takes, where I answer the questions that y'all have asked me over the last couple of years in under 15 minutes. Just enough time for you to run to carpool or to the store or run a quick errand. You don't need much time to listen to these episodes. Your questions, straight to the point answers. I wasn't sure how this was going to go, but I got so much great feedback from y'all last week that you absolutely loved listening to a short episode where you can listen in just a few minutes. So we're going to continue on with that today. One of the things that's really important to me about this podcast is that it's actually helpful for you. The world doesn't need more noise. We don't need more information to take in. And so I want whatever I'm going to contribute to be really valuable for you guys. I want to be willing to shift and change and listen to y'all and in what you need and what you want and how I can best be of help to you. And Short Takes was really born out of that. And so if you have any questions that you would like to submit to me, the best way to do that is to head over to Instagram and message me over there. And who knows, maybe your question will be the next one on an episode of Short Takes. So today's episode is kind of a fun one in terms of the origin of this question today. I have gotten asked this a bunch of times by the young moms in my real life who actually know my kids. They will ask me from time to time, Sarah, who is your favorite kid? Or they'll ask that to Jason, or one of the dads will ask that to Jason when they get together with him. But I've told y'all this before. Some of the best cheerleaders I have for this podcast are my own kids. And when I launched Short Takes last week, one of my kids came to me and said, Mom, I have the perfect idea for an episode for you. Who is your favorite kid? I actually cracked up because this was one of my kids asking me who my favorite kid is, and they all do that from time to time. I've gotten this question a bunch from the young moms in my life, and I just thought this would be a great one to answer on here on this podcast. It was his idea, and I was like, let's do it. All right, so let's get into this question. Sarah, who is your favorite kid? As y'all know, I have 5 kids. They range from age 20 down to age 12. I have 4 boys, and then my baby is a girl. She is 12, and she will always be the baby. Okay, so who is my favorite? I'm going to answer this in 2 ways. And the first is to tell you that throughout the last 20 years that I've been a mom, I have absolutely had a favorite kid in different seasons. With 5 kids with 5 unique personalities and unique gifts and likes and pursuits, there have been seasons with each one of my kids where they truly have been my favorite. Jack, he's my oldest. I remember when he first started going to school in kindergarten, and he would come home with all of these drawings and all of these stories about interacting with friends and what was happening with him at school. And I was drowning under the pile of his 3 brothers at home at the time. And I just remember thinking, gosh, I get to actually talk to one of my kids about real things. He's learning and developing, learning all this stuff, and it's not stuff that I'm teaching him as his mom. I remember thinking that, gosh, you are just such a wonder, because I never knew that one of my kids was going to come home and tell me like what he was doing at school and what he was making and what he thought about the world that was unfolding in front of him. Max, he's my second son. And I remember when Legos first started coming alive to him. And I have this very distinct memory of sitting at our kitchen table with my coffee, with my 3 little boys all playing Legos, and looking over at Max, who was just absolutely enthralled, and thinking to myself, he is my favorite kid at this table. He was just absolutely in love with Legos. My 3rd son is my Lincoln. There was this day when he was 8 years old that I will never forget. He collected some rocks from the yard and he painted them. He set them up on a stand at the end of our driveway and he sold them with a little sign in front of them that said, "Pet Rocks." Several of our neighbors bought them from him, and then some of our very generous friends paid a ridiculously exorbitant amount of money for the rest of his pet rocks. He was my first kid who was truly an artist, and in that moment, I just couldn't believe he was mine, and he was my favorite. My 4th son is Whit. Everything this kid does is magic. At least that's how all of us describe him at home. I remember watching him play basketball as a 5 or 6-year-old. I think it was the first team he was ever on. He made a basket, and then he turned around and ran down the court, pulling his shirt open like he was Superman. Jason and I both fell out and erupted in laughter, and I wouldn't trade that moment for anything. That kid was my favorite kid in that moment. And our baby is Holly. She's our only girl. So of course she's the favorite, right? At least that's what Jason always says. She is my only daughter, one of my very best friends, and an absolute wonder to me that came on the heels of 4 boys in my life. And sometimes my friends will tell me that what they love is that after 12 years, they love it that I still can't believe she's mine and that I still can't get over her. She is clearly the favorite child in our family. Y'all knew I was going to say that, right? They're all my favorite. With each changing season and in moment by moment times, it happens so often that one of them rises to the top and pricks my heart in a special and undeniable way. So if you were to ask me who my favorite was, the answer would change from time to time. But I will tell you this, and I tell each of them on the regular, that they are my favorite. They all know I'm saying that to the rest of their siblings too. But there's something really special about saying that to each of them, and I do that all the time. The second thing I want to say in response to that question, who is your favorite kid, Sarah, is this. I don't have an overall favorite, but the kid that has been best for me in any given season is the kid that has been most challenging for me. When I've needed to fall to my knees in prayer because I just cannot figure out how to parent him or her. When I found myself at the end of all of my wisdom, at the end of my patience, with no answers on how to move forward with this child because I just can't figure out how to parent him or her well through something. When I've cried tears at night because I feel so inadequate. When I've been forced to lean on my community because I simply needed their help. I needed help from someone who might be able to show me the way forward. When my kid's sin has broken my heart and left me crying on my bed because I just don't know how I'm going to fix any of it or what to do. I have had 2 kids with significant physical challenges, requiring surgery and casts and hospital stays, and in circumstances I never would have chosen for them. And I have had to cry out to God to not only stitch up my broken heart over all my kids were going through, but to help me be the best possible mom that I could be to them in their suffering. When I look back on seasons of parenting and my different kids over the last 2 decades, and I remember all of those moments I shared with you at the beginning where I was looking at each of my children with just absolute awe and admiration and love. When I look back, I also see the seasons with each of them when they were incredibly difficult to parent, when they were getting bullied in school, or a girlfriend broke up with them, or when they were brokenhearted, or during those COVID years when they couldn't see their friends, or when they were so mad at me and Jason for some rule we had that they didn't like and they didn't want to talk to us, when they were slamming doors and angry, when they were in the hospital, or when their sin was laid before us and we thought they'd ruined their lives by some decision they'd made. I also look back on these kids and see what God did in them to help grow their faith, to help them trust God, to learn about asking for and granting forgiveness to their siblings or to their friends or to me or Jason, to develop grit and toughness in them on how to get through life in this hard world. Y'all, I look back and I see what God did in my kids in those seasons when they were incredibly challenging for me to parent. I see not only that, but I see what God did in me through my child, how God made me more dependent on him, gave me more of himself and less of me, how he helped me open up the white knuckle grip I have on my kids' lives and open my palms to his loving hand. That control is truly only an illusion. And every time I've walked through a challenging season with one of my kids where I have not particularly enjoyed spending time with them or enjoyed parenting them through whatever it is they were going through, God has done such good work in me to help me be more humble, more malleable in his hands, to trust him more, to become more gracious with my kids, to be more fully embracing of my journey as a mother, and not just in all the favorite things that I love about my kids when things are going great, but to embrace the hard things, the hard seasons, and to welcome them as God's good gift in crafting not only my kids, but crafting me into more of his likeness. Who is my favorite kid? They're all my favorites in different seasons and different moments that make me so proud, make me stand up and wildly cheer and scream my head off when they're on a court or on a field or selling pet rocks at the end of the driveway. But each of them is also my favorite when we can't see eye to eye, when I have to struggle through figuring out how to love and parent them through their own mistakes, through their suffering, through their challenges, through hard questions for them or for me with no easy answers. This is when they have been such a gift in my life to not only mold me as a person and as a mother, but also to make me a better Christ follower. So if I can encourage you with anything today as we close out, I just want to say what I say to you often, which is to take all the pictures, be present, go to your kids' games, do all the things with them, and savor in your heart those special moments with your kids that feel like absolute magic. But also to stop in the middle of those hard moments, whether it's when they won't sleep at night or when you're trying to potty train them or they're biting someone at school and you've gotten the call home, when they're hitting their sibling or when they get older, when they're gossiping about their friends and you find out about it and they're facing consequences, when they get broken up with and they're brokenhearted, or when they're making really poor choices. To stop and recognize that God is not only doing good work in them as you point them to the way forward as little ones or as teenagers, but that God is doing such good work in you and he's using your amazing kids to do it. And that you will look back on these seasons, even though they're hard and challenging, as some of your favorites, because you will see what God did in them and in you during those hard times. That's it for today, y'all. Another episode of Short Takes on the No Way But Through podcast. See y'all next time.
You've just listened to another episode of the No Way But Through podcast. If you want to connect with other like-minded moms and join our growing online community, head on over to Instagram and follow along with us at No Way But Through. You can always reach me over there throughout the week. And if you'd like to financially support this podcast, there's a link at the bottom of every episode where you can do just that.